The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in March, while I was grading reading assessments at the kitchen table. I answered without looking at the number because I had been expecting a call from the parent of a student, and unknown Charlotte numbers during a school week are usually parents. Is this Diana Calloway? Yes. Hi Diana, my name is Brenda Osei. I'm a loan officer at First Piedmont Mortgage here in Charlotte. I'm calling because we have an application on file for a cash-out refinance on a property at Sycamore Drive. I have you listed as co-borrower alongside Marcus Calloway. Our process requires verbal verification from both parties before we proceed. Do you have a few minutes? I set down my red pen. I'm sorry. A refinance on our home? Yes, ma'am. The application was submitted 10 days ago. Mr. Calloway indicated you were aware of the application and available for verification. Brenda. A pause. I don't know about any refinance application. She was quiet for 3 seconds. You haven't discussed this with your husband? No. I have not. What is the amount on this application? The application is for a cash-out refinance of $230,000. I looked at the reading assessments on the table. My students' names across the top of each page in their own handwriting, careful, uneven working at it. Brenda, I need to ask you to hold on one moment. Of course. I walked to the window. Outside, the maple in the front yard was beginning to green at the tips. I had planted that maple myself the spring after we moved in. I had picked it at the nursery, carried it in the back of my car, dug the hole with Marcus on a Saturday morning when the ground was still cold. I came back to the phone. I need you to run the title report on that property. A pause. I was about to suggest that myself. Can I put you on hold for about 5 minutes? Yes. I stood at the window for 5 minutes. The maple did not move. The street was empty. A Tuesday afternoon in a quiet neighborhood in South Charlotte looks the same regardless of what is happening on the phone. Brenda came back. Diana. Her voice was different. Still professional, but careful now. The specific care of someone who has found something in a document and is deciding how to present it. I've run the title report on the Sycamore property. I need to walk you through what I'm seeing. Welcome to Quiet Karma Stories. My name is Diana Calloway. I am a third-grade teacher at an elementary school in South Charlotte, North Carolina. I have been married to Marcus Calloway for 9 years. We bought the house on Sycamore Drive 7 years ago. I planted the maple in the front yard in the first spring. Brenda Osei told me what was on the title report. Then I called my attorney. We bought the house on a Thursday in October, 7 years ago. The closing took 45 minutes. We signed our names on 22 pages of documents. The loan officer, not Brenda, a different officer at a different institution, walked us through each page. Marcus was patient and methodical about the signing. I noticed this because he was often impatient with administrative processes, and the patience surprised me. Now I understand that he was paying attention to how documents like that worked. He was learning the architecture of the process. The house was a colonial on Sycamore Drive in South Charlotte. 4 bedrooms, a study, a kitchen that backed onto the yard where I planted the maple that spring. The original purchase price was $520,000. We put $180,000 down, leaving a mortgage of $340,000 on a 30-year fixed rate. I had been saving for the down payment for 4 years before Marcus and I met. Teaching salary, deposited carefully, not touched. It was the specific kind of saving that happens when you can see exactly what you are building toward. And the timeline is long enough that each deposit feels like placing a brick. $180,000 in 4 years is possible for a teacher who lives below her means and doesn't move the money. Marcus was a commercial real estate developer. He had his own company, Calloway Development Group, and at the time of our closing he had 2 active projects and was in the planning stages of a third. His income was variable in the way of development work. Very good in some quarters, thin in others, always dependent on the next project closing on schedule. We had been married 6 months when we bought the house. I understood this was fast. I had said so. Marcus had said that the market wouldn't wait, and that we were ready and that the house was exactly right. He had been correct that the house was exactly right. He had not been correct that we were ready, but I didn't know that yet. What I knew. The house on Sycamore was the most considered purchase of my life. The down payment was mine. My name was on the deed alongside his. I had signed every document with the full attention of someone who understands that a signature on a real estate closing document is a specific and binding commitment. I had signed 22 pages on a Thursday in October. The 3 documents Brenda Osei found on the title report each had a signature on them that was not one of the 22. Brenda read it to me over the phone in the specific order it appeared on the report. The first lien, a cash-out refinance dated approximately 2 years ago. Original lender, Coastal Capital Mortgage. Amount, $180,000. Borrowers listed, Marcus Calloway and Diana Calloway. Diana Calloway's signature appeared on the closing documents. The second lien, a home equity line of credit dated approximately 16 months ago. Lender, Southeast Home Lending. Credit limit, $145,000. Drawn in full within 60 days of opening. Borrowers, Marcus Calloway and Diana Calloway. Diana Calloway's signature on the application and closing. The third lien, a cash-out refinance dated approximately 8 months ago. Lender, Alliance Mortgage Group. Amount, $220,000. Borrowers, Marcus Calloway and Diana Calloway. Diana Calloway's signature on 7 separate pages of closing documents. Diana, Brenda said when she had finished reading. Do you have any recollection of signing any of these documents? No. None of the 3. I have never spoken to Coastal Capital Mortgage, Southeast Home Lending, or Alliance Mortgage Group. I have never signed any document related to those institutions. A pause. Are you certain? Brenda. My name is on 3 mortgage documents totaling $545,000 in liens on a property I co-own. I am absolutely certain I did not sign them. Another pause. Longer. Diana, I want to be transparent with you about what I'm required to do with this information. When a title search reveals liens with potentially contested signatures, our compliance protocol requires me to flag the application and report the discrepancy to our compliance department. I'm also going to strongly encourage you to contact an attorney immediately. I already have one in mind. I'm sorry this is how this information came to you. So am I. A pause. Brenda, thank you for calling to verify. That's my job, she said. Today it was more than that. I ended the call. I sat at the kitchen table with the reading assessments still spread across it. The maple outside the window had not moved. I called James Whitmore. James Whitmore's office was in a building on South Tryon, and he had the specific manner of a family law and real estate attorney who has heard many things and learned to present all of them with the same measured professionalism. He had been my attorney for a property review 4 years earlier. A question about the deed structure on the Sycamore house that had resolved simply. I had kept his number for the same reason. I kept the deed in my own filing cabinet rather than the shared one Marcus used for his development paperwork. He listened to everything I told him without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. 3 instruments. 2 cash-out refinances and 1 HELOC. Yes. All within the past 2 years. The first was about 2 years ago. The third was 8 months ago. He made a note. And you have no recollection of signing or being present at any closing associated with these instruments? None. And Marcus has not mentioned any of these transactions to you. In 2 years of shared finances, mortgage statements, tax documents, and bank account access, no. Which means either the statements were redirected, or there's an account I don't know about. He made another note. Diana, I want to explain what the legal landscape looks like here. A forged signature on a mortgage document is not a civil matter. It is a federal crime. Each of the 3 instruments, if the signatures are confirmed as forgeries, represents a separate count of federal mortgage fraud. The lenders were defrauded. You were defrauded. The institutions involved are required by federal law to report confirmed forgery to the appropriate authorities. Who are the appropriate authorities? The FBI has a mortgage fraud unit. They will almost certainly become involved once the lender's compliance teams confirm the signatures. I looked at the window. South Tryon on a Thursday morning, people walking ordinary. What happens to the house? That is the most important question, and the answer is not simple. A mortgage signed by only one party, where the second party's signature is forged, may be voidable. Voidable means the defrauded party, you, may have grounds to challenge the instrument's validity. Whether the liens can be unwound depends on several factors, including the lender's positions, and whether a court agrees the signatures are forgeries. They are forgeries. Then we need a forensic document examiner to confirm it on record. He closed his notepad. Diana, how much equity does the house have? The original purchase was $520. We put $180 down. Original mortgage was $340. Current value? The neighbor sold a comparable property 8 months ago for $680. He did the arithmetic on his notepad. $680 minus $340 original minus $545 in additional liens is a property that is significantly underwater. If the liens stand, the house has negative equity. But if the liens are voidable? If the liens are voidable, the picture changes considerably. He picked up his pen. Let me make some calls. James obtained the closing documents from all 3 lenders within 5 business days through a combination of formal requests and the lender's own cooperation, which was notably forthcoming once their compliance teams understood what they were looking at. He called me on a Monday morning. I have all 3 sets of documents. I'd like you to come in and review them. I came in that afternoon. He placed the 3 sets on the conference table in 3 separate folders, each tabbed with the lender's name. He opened the first one, Coastal Capital, 2 years ago, and placed the signature page in front of me. I looked at it for a long time. It was my name. The letters were formed correctly. The spacing was right. The baseline pressure was close. If I had seen it in any other context, I might have believed it was something I had signed quickly and forgotten. But I had not signed it. I knew my own signature the way you know the feeling of your own handwriting. Not from studying it, but from the specific physical memory of forming it thousands of times. The pen pressure was slightly wrong. The capital D broke differently than mine does. The tail of the final Y was longer than I make it. He practiced it, I said. That would be consistent with the quality of the replication, James said. A forensic examiner will be more precise. He watched me sign my name for 9 years. James said nothing. He opened the second folder. The Hellick documents, 7 pages, my signature on 4 of them. I looked at all 4. The same slight wrongness, slightly more confident than the first set. He had improved between the first forgery and the second. The third folder. The alliance documents, 8 months ago, 7 signature pages. By the third set, the forgery was better. Not perfect, but better. He got better, I said. Unfortunately, yes. The forensic examiner can still confirm their forgeries. The examiner I'm retaining has 30 years of experience and has testified in federal court more than 60 times. He told me this morning, after reviewing scans of all 3 signature sets alongside samples of your authentic signature, that he could offer a preliminary opinion within a week. What is his preliminary opinion now? James looked at me. He said, and I'm quoting, "These are competent forgeries. They are not authentic signatures. I can demonstrate this clearly." I closed the third folder. "For minutes," I said. "I'm sorry." How long would it take him to confirm it on the stand? James considered. He said when I asked him something similar. If the jury is paying attention, for minutes. What Marcus had been doing with $545,000 I learned in pieces. From James's discovery process, from conversations with Marcus's business partner that James's investigator conducted, and from bank records obtained through the legal process. I am telling it now because understanding where the money went explains why he needed it in the amounts he took, at the intervals he chose, from a house I had made the down payment on with 4 years of careful saving. Calloway Development Group had been in trouble for approximately 3 years. The third project Marcus had been planning when we bought the house had been approved, financed, and then delayed by permitting issues that cascaded into construction cost overruns that cascaded into a financing gap that Marcus had been covering with short-term loans from private lenders at rates that were not sustainable. The first remortgage, Coastal Capital, $180,000, went entirely into the development project. It bought him approximately 6 months. By the time the 6 months were up, the project was further behind, and the private lenders were applying pressure. The HELOC, Southeast Home Lending $145,000, covered the private lender payments and a portion of the construction overrun. It bought him approximately 4 months. The third remortgage, Alliance $220,000, was split. $130,000 went into the project. The remaining $90,000 went into a separate account James's investigator traced to an apartment lease in a building in Uptown Charlotte. The apartment had been leased for 18 months. It was in Marcus's name only. The monthly rent was $2,200. There were consistent additional expenses, restaurants, travel, retail, that suggested it was not a business property. Marcus had been managing 2 households for 18 months. The development project was collapsing. He had applied for the 4th remortgage, Brenda Osei's application, because the project's final phase required $230,000 he did not have. He had applied for the 4th remortgage without telling me, exactly as he had applied for the first 3 without telling me. He had listed me as co-borrower, exactly as he had listed me on the first 3. He had not anticipated that Brenda Osei would call to verify. He had not anticipated that Brenda would run the title search. He had not anticipated that I would be standing at the kitchen window looking at the maple tree when the call came. He had practiced my signature until it was close. He had not practiced for the 4th lender calling to verify. The call from the FBI came on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after Brenda Osei's call. I had been expecting it. James had told me it would come. The 3 lenders' compliance teams had confirmed the signatures were under review and had initiated their mandatory fraud reports to federal authorities within 10 days of James's notification. The agent's name was Karen Flores. She was with the Charlotte field office of the FBI's mortgage fraud unit. She was professional and thorough, and asked questions in the specific order of someone who has conducted this kind of interview many times and knows exactly which answers she needs in which sequence. She confirmed I had not signed the Coastal Capital documents. No. She confirmed I had not signed the Southeast Home Lending documents. No. She confirmed I had not signed the Alliance Mortgage Group documents. No. She asked if I had any knowledge of the Uptown apartment. None. I learned about it from my attorney's investigator. She asked if Marcus had ever discussed the financial status of Calloway Development Group with me. In general terms, he said the 3rd project was running behind. He said cash flow was tight. He did not tell me the company was in financial difficulty of the kind that would require $545,000 in unauthorized liens on our shared property. She was quiet for a moment. Diana, I want to be clear about what this investigation involves. We are looking at 3 counts of federal mortgage fraud, 3 counts of forgery of financial instruments, and potentially additional charges related to the use of fraudulently obtained funds. This is a federal matter. The investigation will move on its own timeline. I want you to know that your cooperation, and the documentation your attorney has provided, is very helpful. Is there anything else I can provide? James Whitmore's office has been extremely thorough. I think we have what we need for now. A pause. Diana, do you have somewhere to stay if you need to be away from the Sycamore property? I thought about that. The house is mine too, I said. My down payment is in that house. My name is on that deed. I'm not leaving. A brief pause. Understood. We'll be in touch. James called me on a Friday afternoon with an update on all 3 lenders. Coastal Capital Mortgage had completed their internal review. Their forensic examiner had confirmed that the signature on the closing documents was not consistent with Diana Calloway's authentic signature. They had filed their mandatory federal report and were cooperating with the FBI investigation. They had also formally notified Marcus Calloway that the instrument was under fraud review, and that no payments under the instrument would be credited to the underlying property during the investigation. What does that mean practically? It means they're not making additional claims on the property while the investigation is active. They are preserving their position pending the outcome. Southeast Home Lending had done the same. Their examiner had taken 8 days and had issued a 4-page report. The conclusion: the signatures were consistent with a practiced replication rather than authentic signing. The report used the phrase skilled forgery twice. They were cooperating with the federal investigation. Alliance Mortgage Group had responded fastest. Their examiner had reviewed the documents and the authentic signature samples within 5 days, and had issued a preliminary finding in 2 sentences. Asterisk, the signatures do not match the authenticated samples. This office recommends immediate referral to federal authorities. Asterisk, they had made the referral before James had even contacted them. All 3 lenders are cooperating, James said. All 3 have fraud reports filed. All 3 examiners have confirmed the forgeries. What is Marcus's position? His attorney contacted me this morning. Marcus has retained a criminal defense attorney. He hasn't called me. No. His attorney has advised him not to contact you directly. I thought about that for a moment. James. The voidable lien question. I have been in contact with all 3 lenders' legal teams. The position, preliminary but consistent across all 3, is that a mortgage instrument bearing a forged signature by a non-consenting co-borrower may be voidable at the election of the defrauded party. Meaning you. The lenders will pursue Marcus for the funds. That is a separate civil and criminal matter. But the liens on your property, if confirmed as products of fraud, may not be enforceable against you. The house. If the liens are voided, the house carries only the original 340 mortgage. The house has approximately $680 in current market value. The equity position is approximately $340,000. $340,000 in equity. The maple in the front yard. The kitchen that backed onto the yard. My name on the deed, my down payment in the foundation, my signature, my real one, on 22 pages 7 years ago. Good, I said. Marcus came to the house on a Saturday morning, 3 days after his attorney had told him not to contact me directly, which I mention because it is consistent with the pattern of a man who follows advice when it is convenient and disregards it when he has decided something. I heard his car in the driveway. I did not open the door until he knocked. He looked like someone who had not been sleeping. His shirt was pressed but his eyes were not. Diana. Marcus. I need you to understand something. I need you to understand that my attorney has advised me not to discuss the legal matter with you without representation present. If you have something to say it to James Whitmore. This is not a legal conversation. I want to explain. There is nothing you can explain to me that changes 3 sets of forged documents. There is nothing you can tell me about the development project or the apartment or the money that changes what you did to a house I put $180,000 into. He was quiet. The apartment. His voice was different now. Lower. I ended that 8 months ago. Right around when? Right around when you took out the 3rd remortgage. Yes. I'm aware of the timeline. He looked at the maple tree in the front yard for a long moment. I was going to fix it, he said. The project was going to close. I was going to pay everything back before you ever. Marcus. A pause. You forged my signature. 3 times. On federal mortgage documents. You did not make a financial error. You did not make a poor investment decision. You committed fraud against 3 lending institutions and against me, using a skill you developed by watching me sign my name for 9 years. He said nothing. The FBI has your file. All 3 lenders have filed reports. James has everything. He looked at me. Something in his face was the specific collapse of a person who has been managing a situation and has run out of ways to manage it. What happens now, he said. Now you go talk to your attorney, I said. And I go inside. I closed the door. I stood in the hallway for a moment. The house was quiet. The kitchen was at the end of the hall. The window above the sink facing the yard, the maple visible from it. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. The legal resolution took 14 months. Marcus pleaded guilty to 3 counts of federal mortgage fraud and 2 counts of forgery of financial instruments. The sentencing came on a Thursday morning in May. James called me when it was over. 32 months federal. Restitution to all 3 lenders. The development company is in receivership. The house. The court has confirmed the 3 fraudulent liens as voidable at your election. All 3 lenders have agreed to release the liens against the property as part of the restitution framework. They will pursue recovery from Marcus directly through the criminal restitution order. The Sycamore property carries only the original mortgage. I was sitting in the kitchen when he called. The window above the sink faced the yard. May and Charlotte, the maple fully green, the leaves the specific dense green of late spring. Current equity position? Approximately $350,000, given the current market. The neighborhood has appreciated. $350,000. My $180,000, grown over 7 years in a house I had planted a tree in, kept up, graded papers in, taught myself to be alone in over the 14 months of the legal process. James. Thank you. Diana, you did the work. You had the documentation. You called me within an hour of Brenda Osei's call. Every step after that was possible because of that first hour. I thanked him again. I ended the call. I sat at the kitchen table for a while. The assessments I was grading before Brenda called were still in a folder by the door. I had never thrown out that particular stack. I had just moved it to the side and kept going to work and coming home and managing the legal process and going back to work. Teaching is like that. The work continues regardless of what is happening in the margins of it. My students that year made more reading progress than any class I had taught before. I don't know exactly why. I think it has something to do with the specific focus of a person who is simultaneously keeping her house and teaching children to read, and learning that a forged signature is not a signature. Precision matters. In documents, in signatures, in the daily work of teaching a 7-year-old that letters mean exactly what they say, not approximately, not almost exactly. Brenda Osei sent me a card after the sentencing. It said, "I'm glad I called to verify." I kept it on the refrigerator for a long time. The maple outside is 7 years old now. It is tall enough to shade the front yard in the afternoon. I planted it on a Saturday morning when the ground was still cold, with a man I was married to for 6 months at the time, and would be married to for 9 years total, and who watched me dig the hole, and carry the root ball and press the soil, and who paid enough attention during that time to learn how I signed my name. He learned the wrong thing from watching me. The house knows whose name is real. Lessons from this story. The first lesson is about the architecture of fraud. Marcus did not commit fraud impulsively. He committed it methodically, with increasing skill, across 3 separate institutions over 2 years. The forgeries improved between the first and the third. He learned to space the applications to avoid triggering cross-institutional alerts. He redirected the mortgage statements. He maintained the appearance of a shared financial life while building an entirely separate one. Methodical fraud leaves a methodical record. The title report that Brenda Osei ran contained all 3 instruments, dated, documented, and available to anyone who looked for them. He had built the evidence of his own crime into the public record, one lien at a time. The second lesson is about the importance of the verification call. Brenda Osei called to verify because that was her protocol. She had no reason to suspect fraud when she dialed the number. She was doing her job. The job done correctly exposed a 2-year pattern of federal crime in 11 minutes. Protocols exist because the people who designed them understood that fraud is possible. Following the protocol is not bureaucratic inconvenience. It is the mechanism by which the system catches what the fraudster believed would not be caught. The third lesson is this: a house you paid for, with your name on the deed, cannot be taken from you by someone who forged your signature. The signature is not yours. The documents are not valid. The liens are voidable. The law is precise about this. A signature means the person signed. If the person did not sign, the document record's not a commitment but a crime. Marcus forged 3 documents and built 3 liens on a house where the equity belonged to the person whose name he had practiced. The equity remained where it had always been. The forgeries did not move it. They only documented in federal court exactly what kind of man had been watching her sign her name.